next Thursday.
We're in New York. No complications.
Oh my God!
Nancy!
Amelia's sister.
This is my husband.
Welcome to the family.
No.
It's a Sheperd family reunion
This is a terrible idea.
that's serving up plenty of dessert.
There's just one thing I don't understand. Out of all of us, how did you end up with the hottest husband?
New Grey's Anatomy, next Thursday on ABC.
I really liked the trailer for the whole package. In fact, I really did enjoy the episode, but the episode has way too many plot lines, and an episode that has too many plot lines ends up becoming a background noise episode because your attention just gets scattered. So I do have a good chunk of notes, but I don't think we'll have a very long discussion about the whole package or even the trailer for The Good Sheperd. And if you're new to the channel, there is a chapter time in the video description if you just want to talk about the trailer for the Amelia-centric episode next week. So more or less, the stick out or the highlight of this episode is the relationship between Megan and Owen. And Megan Hunt was a recurring character back in the beginning of season 14. I like Megan Hunt. She ended up with Nathan Riggs, which I know caused a little bit of chaos with the fandom because people wanted Riggs to end up with Meredith, but Riggs wasn't even in this episode. But the actress that portrays Megan is fantastic, and the dynamic between Owen and Megan is excellent as well. No one can talk to you like family, I feel. I have two sisters, and the way that Megan counseled Owen towards the end of the episode I thought was just so perfect. And even in the beginning when she called him a dum-dum, I thought that was really well done. And it kind of, I think, brought Owen down a little bit to earth. Not that he was, thinking he's the best, but I like the fact that Megan called out the real issues that Owen has. And it kind of makes sense, given his relationship with Amelia, given his relationship with Christina. They were both more or less toxic relationships. And there are people I know that ship Owen and Amelia, that ship Owen and Christina. But those relationships were not for him. He settled. He didn't find someone that had the values he wanted or has, and he ended up really hurt. So I like the dynamic between Megan and Owen a lot. Like, that really stuck out. Owen also had some really nice scenes, or one really nice scene with Catherine, but there could have been more scenes of him and Catherine talking because Debbie Allen, such a great actress, but even, her presence felt muted in this episode. And so Teddy, Owen, Megan, Tom, just to get them out of the way, they're also working with Jackson, Meredith, and Catherine, but Kim Raver, who was such a big deal last week, especially dealing with Joe, and we'll talk about Joe in a minute, became total background noise. Tom Karasik, played by the fantastic Greg Germain, background noise, just very, very muted, essentially irrelevant. Though the scene where Megan talked to Teddy, I really did like that because that felt like a sister talking, sisters communicating about their own problems, and I did like that. So, Megan made this episode. Now, as I said earlier, this episode was very scattered, way too many plot lines. I think if you had cut out Alex's PEDS problem and just completely avoided Amelia, Maggie, who was involved with Alex's PEDS problem, and even only put Joe in for a second, and quite honestly, if you cut out Richard and DeLuca, you could have allowed for a really, really intense, dynamic episode with Meredith and Jackson, because Meredith has done very little this season, and then have Teddy, Owen, and Megan and Tom all interact together, and have Catherine, kind of be like the glue that binds the two because she was dealing with the surgery. So that's just really how I feel. Like, it was a very scattered episode, and I wish that a few of the plot lines were cut out, a few of the characters were cut out, so that we could focus on the more important storylines. And I think that's a good dynamic for Grey's Anatomy. For a long time, we've always had episodes where we've had many characters in one episode, which isn't a problem, but you don't want your attention to be diverted when the characters get separated. It's nicer when you have fewer characters that are doing one thing and you're watching that story, as opposed to having 5 stories with 12 plus characters. It just causes for a lot of diverted attention. So Teddy and Tom were not involved at all. Like, Megan's scenes with Teddy were the best for Teddy, but Teddy, I really feel that she's back to guest starring, even though she is starring. But Owen, Megan, Catherine, Jackson, and Meredith were all involved with a veteran who has a massive PTSD, was lying about his support system. They were doing a surgery, and essentially it was a great scene where the veteran came out and said, essentially came out that he was lying, and Catherine called the surgery off. We saw that in the promo for this episode. That was a really great moment. But then you just have, like, as I said, you have the other moment with the Pede storyline going on that I felt made it very scattered. And no offense to the writers of the show, and it's not anything to do with Justin Chambers' acting. I feel that without Arizona to kind of balance out Justin Chambers, to balance out Alex, that the Pede storylines don't feel as impactful as they should be. Like, I quite honestly did not care about the little boy. I think his name was Gus. And it was just, the storyline was, it took away from other stuff that I wanted to see. Now, I did enjoy Meredith and Jackson's bonding, and we could have had more scenes of that had we not had the Pede storyline. I really did like when they were talking. They had a couple of really nice scenes. Jesse Williams and Ellen Page have known each other for years. There's a really good dynamic, good chemistry there, and so I did like that. Now, speaking of good chemistry, the scenes with DeLuca and Richard were also really well done. They were very much grouped into the scenes together in the OR, and I really like that. I liked that Richard felt like a father for Meredith, and DeLuca was intimidated by him. I really did like that. And then Jackson even admitted that Richard is like his father. So I like the scenes. Again, Richard, with him dealing with DeLuca, and then the scenes where Jackson and Meredith were talking about DeLuca, I thought were really well done too. Bailey is great. I love Bailey. Bailey had best scene in this episode was quite honestly her ending scene with Richard talking about how Alex became like the best chief, or how he did one thing better than the two of them. But she was really used for comic relief, and I like the comedy in the show. But Chandra Wilson, I think, can be used to such a different way. Kelly McCurry, who essentially was blended into to Alex's story, and Amelia was there for all of 3 seconds and essentially useless. But Kelly McCurry, I feel that should have been the one to be the comic relief throughout this episode, just because of her acting abilities. I think she's a much better comedic actress. Not that Chandra Wilson isn't good at comedy, but I don't like when Bailey's just being like the running joke. There was several scenes where she's dealing with these high school students who are there for like leadership training and whatnot, and Bailey just happens to be in the room where no one sees them. Then all of a sudden the camera turns after something like disgusting or funny is said that's like inappropriate. So it's just it just doesn't make sense to me how you have your 11 main characters, but you have Bailey, Maggie. I mean, Richard could have had more scenes, but you have Bailey, Maggie, Amelia, Richard, Teddy, all exceptionally underused. It's not so much that it's bad writing, because everyone has something to do, but I think given the way that writing has evolved, that Grey's Anatomy needs to kind of break the mold of writing, do some more interesting, engaging writing. Not that it's not interesting and engaging now, but they need to do a different form of writing where you're not focused on your entire main cast and you only have like maybe 6 characters as opposed to 11, and then have a few recurring characters sprinkled in there, but only have like your 11 main characters, maybe only 6 be in each episode. There was a really good dynamic with Link and Joe. There could have been more scenes of that. Like if you had Meredith, Jackson, Catherine, Owen, and Megan, and then had the Link and Alex, Link and Joe scenes, that would have been more than enough. It would have been dynamic, because you would have had a follow-up from last week's episode, and then you would have had the drama with Catherine dealing with her surgery, and then having Megan and Owen deal with Owen's issues with Teddy. Again, I think Megan was the standout of this episode, and this episode is not bad. It's just too much. It's just when you have an episode that's too scattered and it gets reviewed. Like if quite frankly, I don't think if I wasn't reviewing the show, I would care. But as a reviewer and a critic of television and movies, I know what's engaging to an audience, and I think that this episode, particularly for fans, you're kind of like, there's too much going on. So overall, not a bad episode, but they could have trimmed some fat, and I think the fat to trim would be the Alex and Maggie. Well, Maggie was inadvertently added to it, but the Alex Pete storyline, because as I said, I think Pete's is interesting, but I think Alex should have been more focused on Joe, and I think without having Jessica Capshaw on the show anymore, Pete's feels kind of empty. So now let's talk about the trailer for The Good Sheperd. And it's hilarious. The trailer, like last week's trailer, matches up to the episode description. So we have Amelia and Link travel to New York to operate on a patient with a severe spinal deformity, but they're in for more than they bargained for when Nancy Sheperd invites them to dinner at her home. Now, Nancy Sheperd, we met in season 3. They called her McBitchy. She enjoyed calling Meredith the slutty mistress and whatnot. She's played by Ember Dazovith. She's fun. She's a fun character. Really, she's a fun character in the sense that we met her the one time, and if you remember her in season 3 from your rewatch of the show, she kind of sticks out. But there's so many Sheperd sisters, and then we're gonna meet the new sister Amy Acker, or Kathleen, played by Amy Acker, and more. She wasn't in the trailer, but per the press release, Carolyn Sheperd, played by Tanya and Daly, will be back as well as their mother, which I think is going to be exciting. Where not Kathleen. Lizzie will not be in this episode, but I think it's nice that we're going to have three of the 4 Sheperd sisters. There's probably going to be some talk about Derek. So the trailer talks about the deformity, and then the press release talks about the spinal deformity, which isn't in the trailer, but it's essentially relevant because this episode is so focused on Amelia and the Shepards that we might have very little hospital story. And speaking of the hospital, granted, every character as of now is credited, but they're credited doesn't mean they're going to be in the episode. So we could be in New York the whole time, and this could be very similar to episode in season 13, where it was just Arizona, Joe, and Bailey, where they go to the prison, and this episode really focuses solely on Link and Amelia as main characters, with just your supporting characters for the Shepards. But I think to have only one original main character in this episode would be a little odd, because technically Chris Carmack has yet to be promoted to starring yet. I'm excited to see more of Amelia's family, the dynamics between her and her family. Her family was never on private practice. Her family has, I don't think, to my knowledge, Amelia's family has yet to be with her on the show, which I think is interesting as well. And Derek's got to interact with them, but Derek also got to interact with Amelia, but I don't think we've ever seen Amelia interact with other people besides Addison, and Addison was her former sister-in-law. And Meredith is her sister-in-law, if you don't count the marriage as being nullified by Derek's death. So I think there's going to be a lot of humor, probably a lot of drama, but Amelia being kind of like the black sheep of the family, the drug addict, kind of very scattered, married, divorced. Granted, Derek was married and divorced and whatnot, but there's a lot of drama, I think, that could come out of this, because no one can get to you like family, which was shown in the whole package, because Megan was able to get under Owen's skin in order to allow him to figure out what's going on with him. So I do think that the sister dynamic is going to be good. I just hope that the chemistry between the 3 actresses will be as good as the chemistry between Ken McKidd and the actress who plays Megan Hunt, whose name I don't have in front of me, which I apologize for. I do like that the trailer does match to the press release, more or less. I mean, Amelia called Link her husband in the trailer, which I thought was funny, but there's really little else to discuss, because the promotional pics are focusing on Amelia and Link at the dinner, which, or Amelia and her family and Link at the dinner, which is essentially what we saw in the trailer. So there's not too much more to discuss for Good Sheperd, but I do hope it's a fun episode. I hope we get a little bit more hospital storylines. We don't get a lot of sneak peeks anywhere. We get none. I think we got a sneak peek for this episode that was released today on Instagram, which I think is ridiculous. But I think this episode, given how it's a Sheperd related one, we should hopefully get a little bit more information on it, at least a sneak peek. I wish it wasn't released on Instagram or Twitter, but they should at least give another one maybe a few days before it airs. So overall, I thought the whole package itself was a decent episode, not a fantastic episode. And I think the Good Sheperd has the potential to be very good. I just wish we could see a little bit more of what's going on beyond the Sheperd family. But again, Sheperd is a staple of Grey's Anatomy. Amelia being on the show, I believe she came on in season 7, becoming a main character in season 11. But but Derek has been there since season 1, so Shepards are always a thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to be going on, how much Derek we talked about and whatnot, and how Link will react to her family. Maybe her family will cause him to run. So overall, those are my thoughts on both the episode that aired on April 4th and the episode that is going to air next week. So anyway, share your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll talk real soon about Grey's Anatomy. All right, guys, bye.